A mere 1,204 days. That was the gap between Danny Ricciardo's Monaco win in 2018 and his victory in Monza last weekend. One of the longest gaps between victories for a driver on the current F1 grid. But who at this point is serving the longest barren stretch since their last Formula 1 win? Well, here with this GPFans special, we bring you the top 5 drivers currently waiting to end their F1 win drought. Now, before we go any further, a quick point. The list can't include any driver that hasn't yet won a race in Formula 1. Any driver that hasn't tasted that sweet, sweet taste of champagne atop the podium, there's no room for you, I'm afraid. Antonio Giovinazzi, Yuki Tsunoda, Lance Stroll, Carlos Sainz, Nikita Mazepin, Mick Schumacher, Lando Norris, Nicholas Latifi and George Russell, you're all out of here. You don't make the cut because you're still waiting to have that first one. Now, hit that subscribe button, stay up to date with everything we do at the channel, and let's get into the top 5 longest droughts currently in Formula 1 since a last race victory. Number 5, Sebastian Vettel, 725 days. This could have been about a year longer were it not for the floodlit night of the Singapore Grand Prix on September 22nd, 2019, where the German driver took his last race victory. Starting from third on the grid, behind teammate Charles Leclerc and the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton, Vettel got a fantastic start to stay on the heels of the British driver and piled on the pressure in the first few corners as the younger Leclerc looked to try and pull away from the pack. As the race settled down, Vettel was able to make his pass on both Hamilton and Leclerc via some exemplary driving and pit stop strategy. Holding off the Monegasque driver for the remainder of the race, Vettel took the checkered flag for the last time to date. Since then, he's only made the podium once in Turkey in 2020, and there was obviously his third place finish in Hungary that was taken away from him after an adequate fuel sample was unable to be collected from his car after the race. But with the 4-time world champion now, of course, at Aston Martin, there may not be many more chances to end that race victory drought. Charles Leclerc, 739 days. So just 2 weeks before that Grand Prix in Singapore for Vettel's last race win, a Ferrari driver was stood atop the podium for the last time to date in his career. And the new boy to the team, Charles Leclerc, had sent the Tifosi into raptures with a Scuderia win in Italy. It was his second win in a row, having won in Belgium the race before, and many thought we would see the young driver on the top step of the podium a few more times after those victories. With the racing red Ferraris seemingly on the rise at that point, and both their fledgling driver and the elder statesman Vettel putting in impressive performances that season. But after starting on pole in Monza and dealing with the near relentless pressure from Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes for much of the race, Leclerc held on at the Italian Grand Prix to take the checkered flag to the delight of the home crowd, but unfortunately for him, the last time he's seen a race victory. He had podiums in Singapore, Russia and Abu Dhabi that season before a second place finish in Austria and third at the British Grand Prix in 2020. They're as close as he's come until this year. Then, of course, we had the error in qualifying at Monaco this season that forced him to miss the Sunday race despite sticking his car on pole in qualifying. And then, of course, he was hunted down by Lewis Hamilton in the closing stages of the British Grand Prix this year, unable to hold on to his lead, settling for second. But of course, Leclerc is still only 23, and Ferrari are desperate to get back to the top of Formula 1 as soon as possible. This is one streak that could come to an end very soon. Number 3, Kimi Räikkönen, 1,061 days. 2,044 days after his victory in Australia at the opening Grand Prix of the 2013 season, Kimi Räikkönen ended his 5-year wait for another race win as he stood atop the podium at the American Grand Prix in October 2018. That, however, was the last time that he tasted victory, and the wait continues for the Finnish driver. A great start from second on the grid saw the then Ferrari driver pass Lewis Hamilton into turn 1 and lead the Grand Prix. His one-stop strategy worked to perfection, while Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes ran a two-stopper that was ruined in part by the great defensive driving of the race leader at lap 20. Cool as you like, the Iceman took the victory, but that is the last time we've seen him finish up front. 2 third-place finishes in Mexico and Brazil gave Kimi third in the Drivers' Championship that season, but that is the last time the Finnish driver has even seen a podium. His career now coming to an end with Alfa Romeo, it feels unlikely we will ever see him on a podium again before the final curtain call. This looks like a barren run that is going to continue now until the end of time. Number 2, Fernando Alonso, 3,049 days. It's quite fitting that Fernando Alonso last took the checkered flag at his home Grand Prix in Spain in 2013 as a race winner. And if I'm honest, it would almost be sporting poetry if that was the last race that Alonso were to win. Starting from 5th on the grid in his Ferrari, note that every single driver on this list so far has had their last race win in a Ferrari. Alonso had a lightning start. Think back to his sprint session at Silverstone earlier this year. He passed both Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Räikkönen on the long uphill turn at turn 3 before getting an undercut in the pit stops on Sebastian Vettel and then getting the slipstream on Nico Rosberg going into turn 1 a little later on. Once out in front, Alonso cruised to victory, cheered on by the home support. But since then, just 6 podiums came Alonso's way in the rest of the 2013 season, before a mere 2 more in 2014. A 3-year absence from the sport hasn't helped to end the drought, and although his current team have taken a race victory this year, it was his teammate Esteban Ocon who stood victorious in France, while Alonso finished 4th after a drive that surely aided his teammate to the win, with the Spaniard doing his best to delay a charging Lewis Hamilton in an epic battle that was one of the best moments of this season so far. But Alonso getting close to ending that drought hasn't really happened since that race win. Number 1, Robert Kubica, 4,848 days. Were it not for the COVID tests of Kimi Räikkönen, we'd have been putting Fernando Alonso in top spot on our list. But it is Robert Kubica, who has taken the grid twice this season at the Dutch and Italian Grand Prix, who has been waiting an age to get the next race win of his career. Canada 2008 was when the Polish driver took the top step of the podium in his fantastically quick BMW Sauber. 3 times Kubica had podium finishes before race 7 of that season in Montreal. Riding in second spot in the race, Kubica pitted as the safety car came out on lap 16, along with Hamilton, Räikkönen and the other leaders. There was a swap of positions in the pit lane that meant Räikkönen was ahead of Kubica, followed by Hamilton as they left their garages. But the signal at the end of the pit lane was still red, and as Räikkönen hit the brakes, not wanting to go through a red light, Kubica pulled alongside the Finn, while Lewis Hamilton went straight into the back of the Ferrari, followed by Nico Rosberg. With the 3 drivers out of the race and then the pit lane almost completely blocked off, Kubica pulled away when the green light showed on fresh tyres, and from then on took the checkered flag to victory. Absolute brilliance that summarises the madness of Formula 1 in that race. 3 second place finishes came in the next 3 years for Kubica before an 8-year hiatus from the sport, returning to the paddock as a full-time driver in 2019 with Williams before taking the reserve seat at Alfa Romeo last season. And now that he's had 2 races replacing Räikkönen this year, he takes the unwanted spot atop our list. So which one of these 5 drivers is going to end their drought first, if any at all? Does Räikkönen have one last bit of sporting romance left in his car? Will Sebastian Vettel be able to pull Aston Martin onto the top spot and have enough fuel at the end of the race to allow the decision to stand? Let us know in the comments section below. Stay abreast of everything that we do here on the channel by hitting that subscribe button and of course following us on Twitter and Instagram at GPFans Global as we bring you the best coverage of all the main talking points out of the world of Formula 1.